There is a strange pressure that can follow you even into a quiet, comfortable life, the feeling that if your days do not look impressive, they may not count for much. You may have worked for years, raised a family, survived difficult seasons, built a home, helped people, and carried more responsibility than anyone could see. Then one day life becomes simpler. Fewer deadlines. Fewer milestones. Less urgency. And instead of feeling relieved, you begin to wonder whether you are doing enough with the years that remain. That question can become especially sharp after 50 because many of the visible markers that once measured progress begin to change. Promotions slow down. Children become more independent. Careers shift or end. Social circles get smaller. The calendar may contain fewer events worth photographing. And when the outside becomes quieter, comparison can become louder. The problem is not that ambition is bad. Goals can be deeply meaningful. Achievement can reflect discipline, curiosity, courage, and contribution. The problem begins when a life has to be visible to feel valid. Because visibility and meaning are not the same thing. A meaningful afternoon may look unimpressive from across the street. It may be a long conversation with someone you love. Reading something that changes the way you think. Cooking slowly instead of eating in a rush. Walking without trying to turn the walk into exercise data. Helping one person in a way nobody else will ever know about. None of those moments make a dramatic story. But a life is not lived from the perspective of an audience. It is lived from the inside. This sounds obvious until you notice how easily the mind learns to use external signals as proof. A promotion tells you that you are progressing. A full calendar tells you that you are wanted. A large project tells you that your time matters. Praise tells you that your choices make sense. Those signals are useful because they reduce uncertainty. They give you something measurable. Meaning is harder because it is often private. You may know that caring for a garden matters to you, but there is no award for noticing what bloomed this morning. You may know that an unhurried breakfast with your partner matters, but nobody applauds the fact that you were fully present for it. You may feel more like yourself reading, repairing something, volunteering quietly, learning a language, or sitting with a grandchild than you ever felt while accomplishing something that sounded more impressive. The difficulty is that a simpler source of meaning can feel suspicious when you have spent decades training yourself to respect visible achievement. Imagine a man in his early 60s who spent most of his adult life in a demanding career. He was good at it. People called him for decisions. His days were full. His work gave him status, structure, and evidence that he was useful. After he leaves that role, he tells himself he wants a quieter life. But within months he begins inventing new projects. Not because he loves them, but because an ordinary Tuesday makes him uneasy. If nobody needs an answer from him, he starts wondering whether the day was wasted. Then something small changes. He begins taking his granddaughter to the library once a week. At first he treats it like another responsibility. He watches the clock. He thinks about what else he could be accomplishing. But slowly he notices that those afternoons stay with him in a way many successful workdays did not. Nothing about them is impressive. That is exactly why they teach him something. He had been asking the wrong question. Instead of asking, "What did I accomplish today?" he begins asking, "What felt worth being present for?" That is the first shift. Meaning is not always produced by intensity. Sometimes it is revealed by attention. And that changes the way you evaluate a life. If you measure everything by scale, a small life looks inferior to a large one. If you measure by presence, coherence, and connection, scale becomes much less important. A quiet friendship can matter more than a large network. A modest home can feel more like yours than a prestigious one ever did. A small act of contribution can be more satisfying than a role that brought recognition but required you to perform a version of yourself you no longer wanted to be. This does not mean you should become passive or stop wanting things. It means desire becomes more honest when it is no longer forced to produce an impressive explanation. You can still build something. You can still travel, create, work, teach, earn, learn, or lead. But the question changes from, will this look like a meaningful life, to, will I actually experience this as meaningful while I am living it? That distinction matters because people can spend years constructing lives that photograph well and feel strangely absent from the inside. The deeper inversion is this: sometimes the need to look impressive is not really about pride. It can be a way of borrowing certainty from other people. If others admire the choice, you do not have to sit alone with the question of whether it fits you. If a goal sounds important enough, you do not have to explain why a quieter desire matters. If your schedule stays full, you do not have to confront the possibility that some of the things that nourish you may be simple, repetitive, and invisible. That can feel uncomfortable because private meaning asks for a different kind of confidence. Not the confidence that says, everyone will understand this. The confidence that says, I understand why this matters to me. So one practical way to notice the difference is to pay attention to the moments you minimize. What do you enjoy but describe as, nothing special? What do you look forward to but rarely mention because it sounds too ordinary? What leaves you feeling more settled, more connected, or more like yourself even though it produces no obvious achievement? Those questions are not asking you to abandon responsibility. They are asking whether your current definition of a worthwhile life is wide enough to include experiences that cannot be displayed as accomplishments. Because after 50, one of the most important freedoms may be the freedom to stop turning every meaningful choice into a performance. A good life does not have to be small. But it does have to be yours. And yours may include ambition. It may include contribution. It may include work that matters deeply. It may also include quiet mornings, fewer people, slower conversations, ordinary routines, private interests, and days that would look uneventful to almost everyone else. The value of those days is not reduced by the fact that they would not impress a stranger. A life can be meaningful because you are present for it, because it reflects what you care about, because the relationships inside it are real, and because you no longer need every choice to prove something about who you are. That kind of life may be harder to display. But it may be much easier to inhabit. If this reflection speaks to where you are now, continue with the Meaning, Emptiness and Purpose playlist. And if you want more thoughtful conversations about purpose, identity, and life after 50, subscribe to Inner Life Decoded.